Testing, 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 testing. Please ignore me. I'm not here. Thanks, guys.
Next one. Second, please. Locke seconds. Any questions about the unpaids? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, signify by saying no. Yeah.
So Lowell usually does this. He is in Aruba right now. So this is a large amount, just so I explain to it, we don't have these large amounts usually. This is basically debt and principal payments on the water and sewer budgets. Out of the 1.3 million, 1.2 million is for that.
Thank you. Moving on to number 8, Plan Commission. The Plan Commission approved and recommended the board on the language of Resolution R-12-24, recommending the approval of the annexation of petition and temporary zoning upon annexation of the South 40 east-west, which is essentially the back 9 of the golf course, and then the North 40 EW 2019 west of N, Lakeshore Drive. And then that was for information results of what the Plan Commission recommendation to the board is. And then B, the Plan Commission approved recommending the resolution R-13-25, recommending approval of the rezoning of the South 40 east-west EW 2020 to P&I institutional district upon annexation and rezoning of the parcels WWP 0011, WGT 0001, WGTs 4 zeros and a 9, WA 4998 0002, and EW 2020 after annexation, and to add a PD planned development overlay district and general development plan. The Plan Commission suggested 3 adjustments to the original, that the language includes the compliance with the village engineer's review. It was also the building heights. There was some confusion about what's a accessory building and what's a building. So they clarified that. And the addition of landscape along the east property line. So that was a recommendation to the board. So those came from the Planning Commission, so that's reported to the Planning Commission. Number 9, I'm going to move on. It's the first opportunity for public comments. If you have public comments, come to the podium, state your name and address, and share your thoughts.
Good evening. Jim Killian, 91 Potawatomi Road.
See if you turn that on, Jim. I don't know. See if that's going to.
Test. Got it. Thank you, Ron. Jim Killian, 91 Potawatomi Road, Williams Bay. Number 1, I want to express my full support for the conservation easement that is proposed for the topography project and their property. I have one request related to that, and that is that the conservation easement be made a requirement or a contingency. So in other words, I would recommend to the village board that you not approve the project without the requirement for this conservation easement. So that's request number 1. The second thing is, at the recent meeting in February, and I know that you're going to be taking action on this soon here tonight, But parcel EW 200020, which is what has been affectionately referred to as the South 40. That is where the racket center is. That was recommended for annexation and for rezoning, which I accept and support. My question is related to the north 40 acres, which are immediately north of that, and they are referred on the map for the conservation easement as EW 20019. And this is the 40 acres that's at the southwest corner of North Lakeshore Drive and Highway 67. And that was recently annexed, but it was not rezoned. I'm not understanding why it wasn't recommended for rezoning, but in any case, it wasn't. But a consideration that I have is that because this North 40 is also part of the recommended proposed conservation easement, placing a permanent conservation easement on a parcel of property essentially has the same impact and effect on that parcel of property as a rezone. And where I'm going with this is that the comprehensive plan, which was adopted last spring, I can't remember if it was March or April, earmarked both the North 40 and the South 40 for residential subdivisions. And I realized that recently a decision was made to rezone the South 40 and take it off the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan was amended at the December 9th village board meeting to take it off, but nothing was done to address the North 40. Now, while I realize that the North 40 is still zoned as farmland, when you place a conservation easement on a piece of farmland where the comprehensive plan that was approved still earmarks that 40 acres as a residential subdivision, by putting that conservation easement on that North 40 acres is in conflict with the comprehensive plan. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So how you handle that, as you know, an amendment to the comprehensive plan is a fairly long process, has to go back to the Plan Commission, back to the public for public comments, back to the village board. But if tonight you vote to approve that North 40 being part of the conservation easement, I would encourage you to consider a contingency whereby the comprehensive plan is re-examined. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Can you hear me? Don Parker, 354 Forest Drive. I'm here tonight as the chair of the Geneva Lake Conservancy, just to let you all know that we have been working with topography on a conservation easement. I guess I can also definitively say you won't approve one tonight, I don't think, because it's not completed. And the draft, which is in tonight's materials, I believe is the red line version that topography sent back to us last week. So topography has suggested changes appear to be minor. And we believe as a board at GLC that we will be able to work out any of the changes that are being requested, and the easement will receive final approval by the GLC board. Finally, this property has high conservation value and is in the Geneva Lake watershed. So the GLC board strongly supports a conservation easement on the property, and we'll work with all parties involved to make sure the easement's ready for signature when required. Thank you.
Thank you. And next.
Sandra Johnson, 27
A little
Theater
closer, it's hard to hear.
Theater Road. Let's see. The first and most important thing I want to say tonight is that I'm sorry. I'm sorry if anything I said hurt your feelings or in any way offended you. It was not my intention. This is an emotional issue, and sometimes our anger gets the best of us, and for that I am not proud. But what lies beneath anger is pain, fear, and sadness. And I think many of us who are opposed to the proposed development feel this way. You wish for us to be patient with you, and I ask that you be patient with us too, because this isn't easy. And I know your job isn't easy either. Public officials are often the target of criticism. You have to have a thick skin to be a public official, and you have to have a lot of weight on your shoulders, making immense decisions that will irrevocably or forever change the character of our little village, while knowing that this will be your legacy. I want you to know that I personally pray for you all every week, for this administration, for our village, for our country, for the world, but it always starts with you. And I don't pray for what I want, I only ask for wisdom and for guidance. The main thing I care about is Vision Hill, mostly because of its environmental, historical, and spiritually sensitive character, but also because I think that it's an undesirable place for large public gatherings, located as it is on a quiet and winding North Lakeshore Drive. I think traffic and noise are going to be an issue. I'm willing to bet that everyone who asked the developer to include Music by the Lake envisioned Music by the Lake as it is currently situated, and not Music on the Hill with the requirement of destroying a sacred virgin woodlands. I would ask you to consider taking Vision Hill out of this development plan, and if that can't be done, that we form a task force to monitor the development and particularly any archaeological finds, as this area is mapped as a Native American campsite, though I believe the hills served as more than just a campsite. And I have here Wisconsin State Journal volume from 1930 that documents Native American archaeological finds, specifically naming Vision Hill and the YMCA camp. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening. I have to bring this way down. I'm Jennifer Nix with Ann Drake and the Women's Leadership Center. We requested and the Plan Commission supported a buffer yard on the east side of the preserved property adjacent to the Women's Leadership Center to help provide some screening and protection from sound for the center. As background, the Women's Leadership Center will hold quiet leadership events, think tanks, and gatherings. And a lot of these events require the quiet and the sanctity of the natural setting. Next door to our west, with the new development, we'll be ushering in a lot of new activity. There'll be the addition of an outdoor pool, a pool house, a day spa, 2 restaurants, bars, racket center, and an amphitheater that holds up to 3,500 guests for live performances up to 10 times per year. In the summer months, this could be as many as 1 per week. And as we know, we have the addition of some 2-story cabins very close on the east side, close to the property line. And those will house overnight guests, and there's activity and noise kind of associated with that addition also. So we know there will be additional sound and traffic and activity from the performances, the pool, and the cabins. And we just ask that we add this landscape buffer to help kind of insulate and protect from some of that, that noise. The developer added some minimal plantings behind 3 cabins, but it actually doesn't constitute a buffer zone. So we just ask that the GDP be revised to include a 35-foot buffer zone on the site plan. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Peter Vargulich, and I'm a consultant and advisor to the Women's Leadership Center. During the February 19th Plan Commission meeting, Commissioner Killian requested the setback be increased along the WLC property line. Trustee Wright thought the buffer zone requested by the WLC important enough to include as a condition in the motion to recommend approval of the preserved GDP, and that it was made a part of the official recommendation by the Plan Commission. We hope it will not be treated with indifference. The WLC request is consistent with the village's landscape ordinance in cases where you have incompatible uses, buffer yards are required. Our request is based on the known benefits of evergreen and medium trees, providing notable sound attenuation when planted in close proximity to each other. The requested opacity provides for this close spacing to achieve these reductions. The proposed screen plantings by the developer currently only covers about 200 lineal feet of our common property line. This only includes 5 shade trees, 6 evergreens, 5 medium trees, and 23 shrubs. Shade trees and shrubs are very ineffective at attenuating sound. To achieve the 0.6 opacity in a manner that we have requested, this would allude to 22 evergreen trees and 18 medium trees for that same 200 feet. This is a notable difference in approach and effectiveness to sound attenuation. We respectfully ask that the requested buffer, as detailed in item 1 from our previous letter, be made a condition for the approval by the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comments comes up a little late. Oh, here we go.
Wendy Dury, 542 Wilmette. I just want to make a couple comments regarding the project and Drake. And I will say that I totally agree with the last 2 speakers that were up here about the buffing. I was there in the very first meeting with the preserve that was presented to the village back in a very small group. The things I'm seeing is that we are having more and more structure being put on to that original plan, which then impacts what they're talking about with the buffer zone. So I'm just making a comment as a taxpayer that it seems like things should be contained somewhat as they were for Ann. Thanks.
Anyone else? As I said, I think we have public comments again later on, just make sure of that. We do, so towards the end. I'm going to move on. To number 10, ordinances and resolutions. The first one is the consideration of ordinance 2025-1, providing for direct annexation by unanimous approval of the electors and property owners of the territory located in the town of Walworth, Walworth County, Wisconsin, to the village of Williams Bay, Walworth County, Wisconsin, the South 40 EW 2020 and North 40 EW 2019, village of Williams Bay. So essentially taking the back 9 and the North 40, which has farm fields and a few other things on it, and bringing them into the village. The recommendation of the Plan Commission on the 19th approved the resolution R-12-25. So consider a motion for discussion, a motion to approve the first reading of the ordinance 2025-1, providing for direct annexation by unanimous consent of the approval of the electors and the property owners of the territory located in the village of Walworth, referenced earlier. May I have a motion? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Discussion. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, so I'm also in favor of the conservation easement with the GLC. But I'd like to go one step further. I know that the chair of the GLC says they can work with topography. I'd actually like to see that agreement that they enter into before we approve this. I think that's very important.
Okey dokey. Well, topography has to own it. They don't own it yet. You can't put a conservation on property that you don't own yet. So we got to move along.
I agree with that. That's why I think when Jim Killian mentioned that we should be making it contingent upon the transfer over to topography and not directly to Aurora. And that's, I think, one of the problems.
Anyone else? Okay, I was just getting, any other discussion? Hearing none. Yes, I'm going to do a roll call, ask for a roll call on this particular motion for the annexation of the two parcels. Do the roll call, please.
President Duncan,
Aye.
Trustee Jaramillo, Trustee D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Trustee Wright,
Aye.
Trustee Humans, Trustee Black, Trustee Russell.
Aye.
Motion is approved, but this, just as a reminder, this is an ordinance, so it requires a second reading, which we'll do with the March 17th meeting. Yes, so it'll come back up, and after that second reading, usually if it's approved, usually it's adopted at that point, but not necessarily. And moving on to item number B, and make sure I'm in the right place. Yeah, item number B, consideration of ordinance 2025-2, amending the official zoning maps of Village of Williams Bay rezoning the South 40, and then essentially all of the GWC property on the other side of the road, and to add a PDO planned development overlay and a general development plan. The recommendation of the Plan Commission was to approve with those three possibilities. Compliance, right in compliance with the village engineer, alternate building description so it's cleared up any confusion about what's an accessory building and what's a principal building. That's been done. And add landscape screening along the east property. So I would entertain a motion, please.
I'll make the motion to approve first reading of ordinance 2025-02, amending the official zoning map of the Village of Williams Bay, as stated by President Duncan.
Is there a second to that motion, please?
Second, Wright.
Right, seconds. Discussion.
I do.
Yep.
So bear with me. I know at the last Plan Commission meeting, I was there, and I heard from the commissioners. So I'd like to respond to some of the statements they made. A commissioner stated the resort appeared on many agendas, which is true. Topography resort appeared at the following Plan Commission meetings, which were standing room only, and that was January 16th and May 13th, but nobody was allowed to speak. So yes, they did appear on the agendas. The Plan Commission meeting also was discussed at TID. When that was announced on those meetings, it just said TID Reserve, and I think a lot of people at the time, especially in May and June, didn't know what that meant. But no public comments were allowed then. So yes, that appeared on the agenda. And as we know, no discussions with the residents were allowed at the public board meetings. They were just there to listen. The public participation plan only allowed one public hearing, and that was December 9th. And we all know that all the documents, so I know, well, we all know, were already prepared for approval, so it wasn't really a public hearing, it was just public comments is what that was. One of the commissioners mentioned he only knew of the zoning request after the February 23 update of the master plan, and I was with him. I agreed. I think other plan commissioners at that time had also said that that they didn't know this was coming along, and so they voted unanimously to approve the 2023 plan. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I learned there was an email from Aurora requesting to be part of the update of the master plan for a rezone, a possible rezone in February of 2022. I'll give Aurora credit for that. This would have given the residents full input on the rezone before us back in 2022. However, that request mysteriously disappeared and never saw the light of day. If it did, we probably wouldn't be sitting here today. But I cannot support this for the following reasons. As we saw at the last Plan Commission meetings, there were several items, I think more than just was listed, a few that needed to be revised and brought back to the Plan Commission. And that is really the usual order that we follow, but we're not following that usual order. I mean, the very fact that we approved the Hinsdale tree plan is enough to show these agreements are really being rushed. The fact that Aurora asked to be part of the master plan update, not the amendment process, that should have been granted back then in 2022. We could also include the downtown master plan and allow maximum public participation at the bare minimum if we do grant Aurora's request back in 2022 to be part of the update, which that would have been appropriate, and I think we can still do that. The Women's Leadership Center, as we heard, has very legitimate concerns, and I don't think they're being adequately addressed. So we shouldn't be approving a rezone until that is adequately addressed. And again, with the conservation easement, I really would like to see that done, their agreement. I'd like to see it, even though they don't own the property yet. But as we all know, there's been a lot of processes with them, even though they don't own the property. One of the things I wanted, what I put down here, which I put the developer's agreement should be made public, which I can now cross that off my list. I'm happy with that. We need to make sure no money subsidized topography of the resort, and all the monies in the TID pays for only village infrastructures. I think we might be able to check that off our list too, hopefully. But most importantly, these agreements must be reviewed, I believe, by outside legal to make sure they're written in the best interests of the village. And there's a very complicated documents. There's hundreds of pages. If you read through it, there's just a lot of legalese that's very hard to understand. I think that we need a little expertise. I don't think it would harm anything. We're ending into an agreement for the next couple of decades, it looks like. Again, I think that would be really important for that to happen. Again, for us to just have a second opinion and look at all these documents and say, is this really in the best interest? Or if it is, are we missing anything, or can things be added? So for those reasons, I'll be voting no on this.
Thank you, Jim. Others?
This was discussed in length at the Planning Commission meeting, and some good recommendations were made. The Planning Commission recommendations were compliance with the village engineer, alternative, to rename some of the buildings, the alternate buildings, and also as was already mentioned tonight, the buffer for additional landscaping. All of this was addressed and agreed to and is in the new plans. So in this massive handout that we have here, this is a copy of the general plan. Whatever is on here gets locked in here. That gets locked in the development plan, and it cannot be changed. All of this has been updated in between the 219 when that meeting was. And as far as I want to address a couple things as far as the noise is concerned. One thing was the outdoor pool. The outdoor pool is right off Constance Boulevard, and between the Women's Leadership Center and the outdoor pool, there's actually a maintenance building that will buffer the noise. The other thing is, and I was debating if I was going to say this or not, but I'm going to. As far as the buffer is concerned, there will be additional landscaping. Then you get the ravine. The closest that the building from the Women's Leadership Center is to the, let's say, to where the dividing line is between 80 and 150 feet away. So as far as noise is concerned, there's plenty of space. The thing also, there's a ravine that has been talked about a lot when we went to the Women's Leadership Center. And that ravine was created in the Ice Age. However, it's going to get a walkway down there. So I'm going to ask the Women's Leadership Center representatives if they can please be good neighbors to the topography and kind of put up some screening and something up there so to shade or, shield the walkway from the preserve, if that is possible, because I think they are doing their part. And I think a good neighbors is in order. So thank you very much.
I would just point out that ordinance 390-0909, section B, buffer yard requirements. Buffer yards shall be located along the outer perimeter of a lot wherever two different zoning districts abut one another. These are actually zoned public, institutional, both. Just one's going to happen to have a zoning overlay. So under the ordinances, the buffer yard wouldn't actually be required. Topography has gone out of their way to add more evergreens and shrubs, which they didn't have to do. So thank you.
Thank you. Even though I walked that area for 41 years when I worked there, I went and looked at it again today, and as was said, that there's a maintenance building and actually a fair amount of space between the maintenance building and the ravine, and the pool is some distance from that. So I'm not sure the pool noise is going to be a big issue. The several cabins along the east boundary of the property are small. The occupancy of the whole place is 68 rooms, and they're scattered in little cabins of 1 and 2 bedrooms. So I doubt there's going to be a lot of noise, but I understand the concern of the Women's Leadership Center and wanting to see some plantings, but I hate to see a whole row of evergreens that are next to each other. That's the last thing I think from an environmental point of view I would like to see. So I think topography has agreed to do some more plantings and work to try to reduce the interaction between the two properties. So that's my opinion. Anyone else? Is there a motion for? What's that? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about Lowell. Since Steve, you have anything? Lowell or Steve?
I'm here, no comment.
No comment? Steve?
No, I have no comment. It's not-
Okay, good. Thank you for reminding me. I'd consider a motion to approve the first reading. Yep.
I'm just asking for a bit of clarification as to exactly what the village board wants to approve, if anything, tonight in reference to the ordinance amending the official zoning map. The ordinance as currently drafted just notes that the property in Exhibit B would be rezoned from AH to P&I, that's the South 40, and that the 5 parcels which the president described, which will include then the South 40, would have a PDO overlay on the P&I. So that's what it says. Now, under the ordinance, the village board would have the authority to include conditions for approval of that. As noted in the ordinance and as commented by the president, the plan commission had recommended 3 conditions for approval. And so the ordinance as drafted right now doesn't have that, because that's up to the discretion of the village board as to whether or not to include those conditions or any other conditions. So if you just want to approve it as submitted without adding the conditions, then you can certainly do that for first reading. If you wanted to include in your first reading the conditions of the plan commission, then I would suggest there would need to be a motion to amend the motion to include those 3 conditions, and the second voting on that, and then voting on the motion. Is that understood then, how that would work? Okay, so I just wanted to be clear as to what you wanted to do with this time.
Well, that's very helpful. So I would entertain a motion to amend the ordinance to include the 3 the 3 things that we talked about: compliance with the engineer review, alternate building descriptions, and additional screening. Would someone like to make that motion?
We are going to actively amend it, so it's in there.
Yeah.
Although it's already updated and we have it in writing.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to include the conditions as laid out for the plan commission.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please. Aye.
No.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the amendment.
The amendment to include the 3 conditions from the plan commission. Did you hear me, trustee Wright?
No, I didn't.
They amended to include the 3 conditions from the plan commission.
I'm sorry.
Low.
Hey, Lo. Can you hear me?
Yes.
There was no second to the amendment. You voted on the original motion.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Aye.
Okay,
Lowell,
all right, all right.
Lowell.
Yes.
The amendment was to include the 3 conditions from the plan commission.
Again, the 3 conditions were compliance with the village engineer's review, alternate building descriptions with elimination of reference to accessory buildings, which was confusing, and add additional landscaping along the east property line.
Did you hear that? Lowell,
Yes.
did you hear the conditions?
No, I did not.
It's compliance with the village engineer review, alternate building descriptions with elimination of reference to accessory buildings, and additional landscape screening along the east property line.
Correct. Got it.
Okay, so yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we're,
Trustee Humans, Trustee Black, and Trustee Russell.
Yes.
So the motion has been amended. So then the motion has been amended, so now there'll be a vote on the amended motion.
may I have a motion to approve the first reading as amended of ordinance number 2025-02, amending the official zoning map of the village of Williams Bay for rezoning of the parcels noted.
Yeah, that motion has been made.
Okay.
So now it's just.
Okay. Okay, may I have a roll call on that, please?
President Duncan,
Aye.
Trustee Jaramillo. Trustee D'Alessandro. Trustee Wright,
Yes.
Trustee Humans, Trustee Black, Trustee Russell.
Yes.
Okay. The motion passes 6-1. Moving on to number C, and I need the attorney to tell me why we're doing this. Consideration of a resolution R-16-25, creating the village of Williams Bay Zone, Ward 5, which is the South 40 of EW 2020 and the North 40 2019.
Yes. The reason for the resolution is that if the two parcels are annexed, they will be in a different county supervisory district than the property immediately to their east. And because of that, then there needs to be a new ward created for those two parcels upon their annexation. So that's the reason for the proposed resolution creating Village of Williams Bay Ward 5. And it would provide that, basically that the Ward 5 would be created with the boundaries as indicated.
Thank you. May I have a motion to consider resolution R-16-25, creating Ward 5? I'll make the motion to approve resolution R-16-25. Second, please. Second, Jaramillo. Any discussion?
Second, right?
So this is for the village attorney. I mean, just to be clear, we have wards in the village. We're creating another village ward. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we have, I think, currently 4 wards. And we're creating a 5th, which affects the county supervisor. You mentioned that for the county, it's for county purposes. Is this for election purposes of a county supervisor?
Yeah.
Okay. So just so people know, I believe every decade, we're actually at large. We could go to ward system where we're elected in wards, but we decided not to. So that would mean if the village someday decided that they wanted to go to wards, which means that if, I live on the east side of village, that ward, I can only run in that ward. There would actually be somebody running in that ward. Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's so, we're creating, if the village ever decide, that would be complicated if the village board in the future decided they did want to go away from an at-large to a ward system. That would really complicate it. But anyways, I just thought I'd make that observation.
Thank you, Jim. That's very helpful information. Anybody else on this one? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion to approve the creation of Ward 5? I'm going to do a voice vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, signify by saying no. Motion passes unanimously. The next is D, consideration of resolution R-14-25, approving the restated intergovernmental agreement, amending the existing intergovernmental agreement, GA, with the Village of Fontana for emergency services. There he is. This is the chief. Who is it? We are very lucky to have him.
All right, good evening. Thank you for taking a few minutes to go over the updated intergovernmental agreement. I did want to take just a brief moment to go over some of the numbers of 2024 to kind of better understand where we're at and where we're heading with the intergovernmental agreement as proposed to the Village of Williams Bay. So to start out, just a kind of a recap of where we're at with the intergovernmental agreement and with the referendum that was passed in 2022. This was in a combined effort between Fontana and Williams Bay with equal partnership for funding of 14 full-time EMS personnel to staff 2 ambulances 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it was successful in both Williams Bay and Fontana. So far for 2023 and 2024, we have been significantly under budget, $155,000 in 2024 and $168,000 in 2023. And those fundings are kind of moved to the side for future EMS use. And the referendum on the bottom is as it was stated in 2022, and then some of the calculations on how we got there up on the top. So we are in the process of moving to a longer-term agreement between Williams Bay and Fontana, and we were proposed by the town of Walworth to provide service. So back in September of 2024, before moving forward, we want to make sure that if we're going to bring in another partner to the group, that we had the ability to explain everything and provide a proposal to both boards. So on September 11th, we'd had a joint board meeting with all of the board members from Fontana and Williams Bay present. The proposal was to bring on Walworth Township for a 10-year agreement, and for fire and EMS, the funding would be used to first and foremost to reduce the overall cost for Fontana and Williams Bay. It would also be used to provide additional staffing during peak hours of the daytime and some overtime for Saturdays and Sundays where it's very hard to fill with those part-time personnel, and also work with some of the administrative needs of the organization. So with this, we're able to staff 2 additional personnel during daytime hours. Obviously, our call volume is higher during the daytime hours than it is at night. So the vast majority of our calls fall between that 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. numbers. So we are able to staff a 3rd paramedic ambulance during those daytime hours with the additional funding. The use of some of those funds from Walworth Township came through with the EMS services would be split 50-50 with Williams Bay to reduce the cost from both Fontana and Williams Bay. And with some of those expenses, for the fire expenses, would be retained by Fontana. So a couple of things, there were some really good comments and questions that were brought up previously at some of the meetings. And I want to recap some of the things for the memo that came out at that September 11th meeting. Because there is a cost. There's not just a cost of financial cost. When you're serving an additional community, there's a chance that resources will be dedicated to that other community and not available to serve Williams Bay or Fontana. So we ran the numbers for 2023, and it came back that there was one time out of 430 responses to Williams Bay that Fontana or Williams Bay would have had to rely on mutual aid to respond to that one call. Now, mutual aid is very common in the fire service. We rely heavily on our neighbors, and it's very common to give and take mutual aid to our neighbors. So for that one time out of the year was a 0.25% decrease in service for those mutual aid needs. But there's also a trade-off for additional staffing. And again, these were right out of the memo that was provided on September 11th. So with the additional funding from Walworth Township, we were able to increase our staffing to provide that 3rd ambulance during daytime hours. That was a 26% increase in daytime staffing. So during the daytime hours, that staffing and service would be increased. And there is a potential during nighttime hours that we would have to utilize mutual aid. Oh, that's a little bit off. Next thing was talked about was the use of fire districts. And it's just some things I wanted to clarify because there's a lot of questions about how fire districts are created and how they operate and what can actually be performed in Wisconsin. So just to be clear, typically when you hear the word fire district, it is a separate taxing body. That's typically what a fire district is considered, where your tax bill shows up and you've got a separate line item just for the fire department on your tax bill. Wisconsin doesn't have a mechanism to do that. So in order to create a fire district in Wisconsin, you have to create what's called a paper district, which is done through intergovernmental agreements, similar to what we have right now between Fontana and Williams Bay. And we also have with the town of Walworth. Some of the caveats with that is that, first of all, it's typically seen in larger departments, like Western Lakes has got 76 full-time employees, Lakeside has 30. So at that point, you can afford, this is a nonprofit organization, it's a separate entity. They have their own administrative staff, they have their own HR resources, they are responsible for obtaining their own health insurance for the employees. They take care of their own apparatus, the stations. These are what you're seeing in some of the larger ones. All of the employees are outside the umbrella of the municipalities, and there's also additional resources required. The fire stations, apparatus, and equipment are utilized and set up through specific language in those IGAs. And another thing, it's not typical in our situation where Fontana provides EMS for Williams Bay and provides fire and EMS for Fontana and the township. Apologize for that. It's much cleaner on my side. So a couple of things with the, just to recap for the IGA. So you can, just to go through what some of those, some of the biggest changes are with the agreement. The first is just to clarify what services are provided and that we will maintain and share automatic aid agreements with our neighboring communities. We'll be talking about that a little bit later with a new agreement we're going to be looking to enter into with Delavan Township. Billing, the billing just simply defines the fact that Williams Bay residents will not be billed any out-of-pocket expenses for ambulance transports. Now, there's a difference between transports and non-transports. So to come to a house and assist or business to assist with EMS where we're not transporting, that's different. But transports are typically handled through Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance. There is billing for those, but there's no out-of-pocket expenses for any of those transport fees. Compensation, just some things that are clarified in the updated IGA. Shared expenses are defined. This is the big one, that shared revenue from other contracted municipalities will be able to be shared. So this is where it comes in with Walworth Township, that revenue from Walworth Township could now be shared with Williams Bay. And there's a mechanism through the IGA to share that revenue, which will show the benefits to Williams Bay. It is a 10-year agreement. There is some early termination language that states that if Fontana opts out early, they'll provide funding to help Williams Bay provide service. If Williams Bay opts out early, they'd be either responsible to hire on or provide funding for up to 4 full-time personnel. And the big piece is that it establishes a joint emergency service committee. This part was already approved by the village board because we want to make sure it was consistent between Walworth Township and the village. So to make sure that we had equal say from all the communities to go over the financial and budgetary items for the fire department. And then addendum A is some of those service definitions. So the final numbers as far as entering into this agreement with Walworth Township and the shared revenue. So the end result for Williams Bay, there would be an increased cost with the additional personnel. So we would be adding those additional personnel to staff that third ambulance during daytime hours. But the net benefit by Williams Bay, they would see a reduction in cost of service of about $141,000. Now that's budgeted. Typically our budgets come in less than what we put in because they are typically a little bit higher. We budget for worst case scenario. So that $141,000 will most likely be a little bit better than that, but there is a $141,000 cost savings with an increase in service during daytime hours and a very minimal decrease in service, if any, at nighttime, where we may have to rely on that automatic gate agreements. Excuse me. So this is the last piece I just want to cover. So this is one of the areas we're looking at. We're trying to work with our neighboring communities as much as we can. And with the addition of Walworth Township, there is an area that is very clearly better to be served by Delavan Township. Walworth Township chose to utilize Fontana for serving the entire area. We've reached out to Delavan Township and have a proposal to have them provide service to a small portion of the township. That's that area in yellow, and then have a joint response for fires and car accidents and some of those larger areas, larger incidents in the purple area. The net for this is two things. First of all, during those calls, Delavan Township will be providing the primary service. So Fontana and Williams Bay will be available to respond to those calls in Fontana and Williams Bay. And the other thing is just a good working relationship with our neighbor and sharing of resources between the two. This agreement goes through, it would affect some of the revenue coming in because we would be deferring some of the revenue from Walworth Township directly to Delavan Township. So it would show a decrease in that revenue for Williams Bay by about $3,000 for 2025 if it's approved. And the last thing I want to just share is an email that was sent. So we had a resident from Williams Bay that we responded to in July of last year. And he came to the fire station a few months back and wanted to say thank you to some of the personnel and that were on the call. And he asked if there was anything else he could do. And I did say, if you wanted to send, a message or an email supporting the working relationship between Williams Bay and Fontana, that would be appreciated. And this is what he sent. So he sent this out that says, I live in Williams Bay. On July 11th, 2024, I had a cardiac arrest. Thank you for the combined efforts of the Williams Bay and Fontana Fire Departments. I am still alive today. With their immediate response, knowledge, and up-to-date equipment, they were able to get my heart back in rhythm and get me to the hospital. I thank them for their dedicated service to our communities. I'd be remiss if I didn't make sure I added the Williams Bay Police Department. They were a huge part of this cardiac arrest save as well. They attached to defibrillators. They started CPR. They were another key part of this. But it just kind of goes back to why we're all here. What we're doing here, what's the end goal of what we're doing of the combined services, and that's to make sure that there's somebody there to respond when that help is needed. I do have Chief Smith and Chief Jaros from Williams Bay and Town of Delavan. If you have any questions regarding the co-response that we're looking for, and any questions you have regarding the updated IGA.
Before I take the motion, is there any questions? You did a very good job.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see, we need to. On item number D, consider resolution R-16-25, creating, no, I'm sorry, pop down one. The resolution R-14-25, approving of intergovernmental agreement was just discussed. May I have that motion, please? What? Oh, it does come from a committee. Does not require a second. Any questions anyone has before we vote? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, signify by saying no. Great job.
Thank you.
Item number E, consideration of R-15-25, authorizing a proposal transfer of court records from Williams Bay to Walworth County Clerk of the courts, and a fee of $3,000 paid to the current person, the clerk of the Williams Bay Municipal Court, to make those transitions. In case you don't know, some time ago, the board voted to eliminate the Williams Bay Municipal Court, and there's been a transition. It stays in effect until the current judge's term is up with the next election in April. Any questions on this one? I consider a motion to It come from, I don't know that it can. I consider a motion, please. Second, please. Second block. Any further discussion? Hearing none. 3,000. Yep. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, signify by saying no. Okay, we're moving on to number 11, the additional opportunity for public comments. Yes, sir. I realize you're in a kind of a tough spot up there.
Tom Shaughnessy, 45 Lichty Drive, Williams Bay. As I read this, and I know for legal reasons, you have to come up with this 4W 2000 and all this other stuff. Why can't you have a map up here and somebody point to it and know what we're talking about? I don't think anybody in this room knows what all this legal mumbo jumbo is. I really don't. And I think it would be much easier for everybody here to understand what you're voting on. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'm going to move on. We're going to adjourn the board portion of this meeting. Then we'll go on to the joint committee of the board. Entertain a motion to adjourn the board meeting, please. Second, please. Black seconds. All in favor? Aye. That portion of our meeting is closed. Moving on to the joint meeting of the village board committee of the whole. Well, there's exciting stuff now. Village committee of the whole, call to order, please. I did that. Roll call, please.
President Duncan.
Aye.
Trustee Jaramillo. Trustee D'Alessandro. Trustee Wright.
Present.
Trustee Humans. Trustee Black. Trustee Russell.
Here.
Okay, we have a full quorum. The next item up is the Ad hoc Tree Preservation Committee report. Trustee Humans. Oh, did I miss the minutes? Thank you. Where's the minutes? Oh, there it is, hiding there. Motion to approve the minutes of February 3, 2025. Second, please. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying no. Motion passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to the Ad hoc Tree Committee.
Yeah. So there are no motions needed. This is just for information only. And the reason why this is on the agenda is that I thought it was good news and just want to share it with everybody. So this has to do with the Ad hoc Tree Preservation Committee. And basically that committee makes recommendations to the village board. As you all know, you saw the signs and we have done phase 1, which was the lakefront. We planted 15 trees last fall. So we have been talking about phase number 2. The committee just had a meeting. We walked it, and phase 2 is going to be, or will be, we talked about it last year also, it's going to be the Lions Field House and where the community gardens are and in front of the Lions Field House. The thing is, we're recommending 17 trees. We just walked the land down there. And the good news is the Lions Club is sponsoring this whole project. They were paying for it and they're doing the installation. Also, the Williams Bay School is going to have 5 students helping out, especially the ones that are needing hours for service. We're going to tie this in with the Arbor Day celebration, which is on Friday, April 25th. at Kishwaukee, and they're going to order a lot of trees. And then what we want to do is on Saturday, April 26th, at the Lions Field House, and combine that shipment. So when we get the trees that are going up, or the tree that we are recommending, I should say, are swamp bur oaks, red maples, some 3 red oaks, a bald cypress, a couple service berries, 3 Kentucky coffees, a sweet gum tree, bald cypress. I already said that. So all of this will go to the village board on the 7th of April, and I'm hoping, and Adam will present that to you guys for approval. We have all the finances ready. The other thing that I want to mention is thanks to the WBBA and Jimmy D'Alessandro made a generous donation to the tree fund. So technically we have $3,500 already available for phase 3. $3,500 is not going to do it, so there will be some additional funds needed. And then but we're doing one step at a time. So phase 2, I just wanted to update everybody on phase 2. So thank you very much.
Rob, I got a question for you, or something you could do is at the last Lions Club board meeting, the Lion president asked if you had a schematic or a what would you call it, a rendering of where all these trees are going, the plots, and could you get that to Mark Schneider? Because he asked me for it, because the Lions Club is actually submitting to Lions International for a grant for some of those monies too.
We're going to, Don Scala from the Kishwaukee, the chair for the board, he's going to reserve the trees, hopefully see what we can get. We might not be able to get all of them, and then we have to select something else. And then we're going to have the layout of where they're going to go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Jim, I think you're up next. Streets and highways.
Call to order, and the roll call is I have 2 members that are on Zoom, so I'll just say they're here. I put the update on Highway 67 reconstruction. I haven't had this on my agenda in a while, but it's coming up, and I asked if our village engineer could talk to us about that or update.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. In your packet, there's roughly 16 pages of an engineer's report with attachments. The first 2 pages are my memo, and it's actually a repeat, or a lot of it's a repeat from August 1st of last year. Attached to that is an actual executed state municipal agreement. And then the last of the material in the packet is background on the scope for the utilities, status on the survey, and the previous drainage discussions. So at the last summer, there was an operational planning meeting. We talked about when this project would be led. It's going to be led in September of 2030 with construction in 2031. The road curb ramps will be completely reconstructed. They're going to go down to a 36-inch depth. The 8-foot bike lanes west of Congress will be narrowed to 5 feet. Hopefully it'll make more room for a water main in there. We discussed about narrowing the travel lanes to 11 feet from the current 12 feet. We discouraged that. Discussion occurred on the future streetscaping of the 2 eastern blocks. The DOT requested to see a streetscaping concept when it's available, but they're asking that the village wait to do the actual work until after 2031 and do it by permit. The advantage of having the plan available right now is they can give it to their design engineer and they can make provision for the village to come in later. The real advantage to the village waiting is there's no funds available right now, no grant funds available through the state or feds for streetscaping. But the plan would be handy for the design engineer have to make provision in his design for it so that when you do want to do it, it'll work. The utility design is due in January of 2026, which is 4 months prior to the 60% plans. The first public informational meeting is planned for this summer, hopefully by June. So after that August 1st meeting, we had discussions with the DOT, including asking them to install a flashing crosswalk at Walworth Avenue, Stam Street, and Theater Road as non-participating items. Shift the center line of West Geneva Street 3 feet further south in the section west of Congress. Put the sewer manholes back in the center of the road so you don't hit them when you're going down the hill. Reduce the peak stormwater flow on Congress, and they answered that with, we only deal with the 10-year storm. The peak storms are your issue, basically. Do not reinstall the bike path symbols since they're not required and not funded. We told them that we're working on a new streetscaping plan. The DOT wants to see this plan before they hire a consultant sometime in June of this year. And we asked them to perform an updated field survey. They did respond to this, and they are planning to redo the field survey. The next steps, what I would like us to see us do is finalize the streetscaping plan. It can be very generic if you want it to be. It at least gives the design engineer an idea of what you're planning to do. Wait with most of the final design of the utility improvements until the new survey data arrives, and that should be in June of 2025. And most importantly, attend the upcoming public informational meeting when it happens. They're planning somewhere between May and they're doing final scoping in May, so they'll have that meeting directly after, right after that.
Okay, so stay there for a minute. Because one of the reasons I wanted to put this on here now is because of, we met it with the downtown master plan. We've been talking about it for, I don't know, almost a year. And so if we're going to proceed with that, my hope is it sounds like we have some time on that, but we get the stakeholders and we have meetings and the master plan and kind of go through that has to go with the street reconstruction coming in. And so, and that's 5 years out for that.
Yep.
And I know that the DOT would want to see when we do our downtown master plan, what we would like to do with the streets. So we're not going to really be able to do anything going west of the downtown for quite a while.
Correct. Even the 2 blocks of the downtown
Yeah.
it will happen after 2031.
But that wouldn't stop us with the master plan doing more of the eastern part of the village going east.
Correct.
And, so we may have to look at that in 2 different phases.
Right.
One of the things that I think we talked about, and I think trustees have been talking about for a long time, is putting in burying utilities. I mean, is that a possibility anywhere along those areas of the downtown?
Yeah, that can actually be done. It'll be done. If you bury the utilities,
well,
they'll get done.
Like the overheads?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
Put them all underneath. You may end up funding part of that cost for the utility companies, but that direction would occur at the 60% plan level. So by January of next year, if you made that request, they'll revise the SMA to reflect that, and you can make the utility companies do that.
Right, so we really need to get going on this downtown master plan to get all that in place by, what was the date?
They want it in place by June of 2025, but that's right when their consultant is starting. My guess is that'll be due about the same time our utility design is due in January of 2026.
Okay, so we got pretty much this spring and summer and fall to work on a plan to get to the DOT.
Yeah, at least get the very general concepts down, like burying, getting the overhead lines under that, those type of statements.
Yeah.
Don't take anything as far as exhibits.
Because we know in the past, the utilities was very expensive. And the utility companies told us that we had to pay for those, but we were able to possibly get 60% of that paid for.
Right now, they're taking the pavement down 3 feet. Those utility companies will have the opportunity to do this less expensive than it is if it was a simple mill and overlay.
Okay, that's good news. Do any of the other committee members, if you can hear me, have anything to say, Lowell or Steve? Or George, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I think it's a good idea, get a variance if we can, because I remember that number was very expensive last time. So we have an opportunity, even if it costs us something.
I'm just saying, I think we need, and, you know, that's next on the agenda here, to get that master plan process going with the downtown to get all this in place, because it sounds like we pretty much only have about 8 months to do that, but I think it could be done.
At the upcoming meeting, somebody should stand up and say that. We want all the utilities underground. In this meeting coming up in June.
Don't forget to tell them that.
Okay, I will.
All right, anybody else have anything to say about this? Anybody? Okay. So I did put the, thanks Doug, I did put the downtown master plan. We had a meeting with Vanderwall and they came up with some very, very preliminary sketches and drawings and some possibilities that could be down there. I thought we'd get that out to the public so they could take a look at that. My hope is that these meetings will start soon, and that's just basically a brainstorming. So if anybody's interested in looking at those, and hopefully we'll get the stakeholders in the business district. I know that Bill Duncan and I served for almost 10 years in the business association, and we've talked about this for many, many years. And so, I mean, this is kind of an exciting opportunity with the whole 67 reconstruction, if we can get some of these things done. So I just wanted to put both of those on there because I think they're related, and I wanted to get those documents out there. George, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I think you're right. We should try to move this along very quickly. I know we looked at it and I thought they came up with some good plans. I know we good discussion about it and stuff. And I'd like to see us just keep moving ahead.
Any other trustees want to say anything? Okay, motion to adjourn, George? All right, second, say aye. Aye. Adjourn.
Protective Services, you got a mic down there?
No, but I think I can talk about it. Can everyone hear me? Yep. All right. I'll call to order the Protective Services Committee meeting. President or myself, trustee here, Bill, and on Zoom or whatever that is, we have trustee Steve Russell. First, we have in our packet the Fontana Emergency Medical Services numbers. Anybody, we have also Chief is still here. Anybody got any questions for the chief about that?
I do want to take just a quick moment to go over some of the changes in the reports. So this is January. It's the first month that we included Walworth Township. So the call totals, we did break down the call totals for Williams Bay, Fontana, Walworth Township, mutual aid. And with Walworth Township, there was a couple of calls that were test calls. So those are, we kind of pulled those out. We had to actually, to bring in Walworth Township, we had to actually dispatch live calls as if somebody really called 911 to make sure the system truly worked. So there were 3 calls that were kind of pulled off from that. The average dispatched on scene time was adjusted. And then the staffing report is changed to show the difference between the duty crew, which is the 24-hour staffing. So if it shows 4, that means that we were fully staffed for the day. If it's less than 4, it means that we were short for a portion of the day. The part-time is the daytime. So this is something we're just getting started with. If it says 2, that means that we had 2 additional personnel during the daytime hours to staff that 3rd ambulance. If it's above 2, it means we had something else going on. We had additional staffing for a standby or another event that we had going on. So those are the additional information that was requested to be included in the monthly reports. Any other questions on the information that was provided? Very good, thank you.
Next item we have is Williams Bay Police Department monthly numbers, and I always just have the chief take questions on that, and he also gives us a chief report.
All right, thank you. As I give the report, if you see anything in the numbers that you'd like some clarification on, please let me know. I did see Fontana's report, and it looks a lot nicer. They have better pictures in there, so I'm going to work on that for next month. We just took our new radios. You'll see that over where I was sitting. We actually took those on today. We're hoping to have those fully functioning and in service to each one of our officers by May 1. We have ran some tests with the county, and they are looking that in each part that we were having issues with our current radio system, that the new radio systems are effective and working correctly. So we're happy about that. The big project that we're working on right now is the referendum. You'll see a mailer coming out. It was attached in the meeting, but you'll see the mailer coming out here shortly. That will be pushed out, I think, next week, I believe. May already be on its way out, so you'll be able to see that. Just talks about the some of the things that you see on our website and our presentation, and then it goes into the dates that we're doing our public presentations. The next meeting and public presentation that we have is tomorrow at 12:30 at the library. Cannot thank our partners enough for including us. I know I have a meeting with the Lions. We're going to be meeting here at the school. The library has helped us out, Sherwood Lodge. So really helpful or thankful that we get to participate with them.
We had some squad stuff.
Yeah, yes, we did. We had a couple squads down last week. We were down to one vehicle plus the SRO vehicle for a couple days. The reason being is there was just some unforeseen issues that we had. We had a water pump issue with one. We had an oil cooler issue with another. And then we were having some spark issues as well. So we are back to our full fleet, which we're happy for. We work usually with Bay Auto, but for some of these higher end things, we need to take it to Cunis. So we did have to have one of our vehicles towed out and over to Cunis. But like I said, we're back to full fleet. So we're happy about that. Okay.
I asked this question before, the reason I'm thinking about that is when we have the voting going on, this is outside, control cars were running.
And so we talked about that because they don't want to turn off the computers and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But is there kind of a time limit on that, or do we just let them run for hours on end sometimes?
Sure. Good question. No. So what we've done recently, so most recently, if they're just going to run in and do something, then yes, it'll continue to stay on. If they're coming in and doing reports, it needs to be shut off. We've tried to cycle them in and out of the garage so that they're staying warm and they are not staying on. That is an issue with most patrol cars. We had an issue where we would shut it down and the radio would run for so long that the battery would die. So we were working out that issue. So yeah, so there's a lot of small issues happening with the fleets like that. All right, thank you.
And that's all we have tonight. I look for a motion to adjourn. Russell Pike and Mitch, who's second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
Okay. I'll call the order of the water. Oh, I think I need it. I'll call the order of the Water and Sewer Committee. We got several items on the agenda. The first one is item number C, consideration and possible action on a quote from Northland Equipment Company for a new public works, water and sewer truck. And so this has been on the agenda before. We already approved the truck actually for $46,903, but the truck needs a bed. And that estimate came in for $18,575, which is basically the box and the box liner and light bars. We do this from borrowing $50,000, $25,000 from the water fund, $25,000 from the sewer fund. So if you add them all together, we obviously go over the $50,000, but we have a truck to sell. Lynch Truck Center offered $8,000 for the truck, but we think at auction it will be closer to $14,000 to $15,000. And if we get that kind of money for it, we will basically be right under $50,000. So I'm looking for a motion to approve this bid from the purchase of this bid from Northfield.
And I'll second, and I get a question.
Okay, you're first and a second, and you have a question?
Yeah, so if we don't get that dollar amount from auction, what's our backup plan? Or do you have cash stash somewhere?
Well, if we just trade it in for $8,000, then we would be short $6,000 about. However, we definitely will get 12,000 to 14, I would say. So we would go $2,000 over, and this comes out of the water fund. And the water fund is half of it. We have all these projects listed, and after we finish everything through 2029, let's say, we still have $1,500,000 left over for borrowed funds. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, Adam? No? So all in favor? Say aye. Aye, okay, great. Okay, we move on to the next item, which is consideration and possible action on HydroCorp residential and non-residential cross-connection program renewal proposal. And so, hang on, let me get my paperwork here. So HydroCorp is a company that does cross-connection, and for those people who don't know what cross-connection is, it is basically they come out to your house and they check if any plumbing mistakes were made, and the plumbing mistake would cause for polluted water to get into the fresh water. So if you ever get a card or a phone call, you should allow them in there. So this is a 2-year contract. So there are 2 different contracts, one for commercial and one for our residences. So for 2025, the commercial contract is $21,984. It's $5,125, and the residential $16,859. That brings it to $21,984. It goes up a little bit for 2026. It goes to, the combination is $22,864. We have a budget in place for 2025 for $22,000. And if you look back, so basically in 2023, they charged us $20,840, in 24, $21,720, and currently the current for 2025 would be of $21,984. So right under $22,000. Ironically, what we were going to pay for 2025 22,864 for 2026 was the same amount basically that we paid in 2020. So it hasn't gone up a lot. And for that, they will go on the residential they do check between 468 and 478 houses, and on the inspections for commercial between 60 and 68, which is basically what they usually do. And I don't know if Wayne is there. Thanks, Wayne, for catching the minimum on that. He had that corrected. So I'll make, looking for a motion to approve the HydroCorp contract for 2025-26.
I'll make that motion.
You make the motion and you second. So first, second, any questions? No, no questions. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, great. Got that one done. And then, Doug, are you ready for the, for your engineer report?
In your packet was a 3-page engineer's report. I'm just going to cover the projects that are moving. First of all, the improvements to the water plant. We're meeting later this week with the contractor. He has a whole new schedule for us. He's gotten his subs all lined up. They're ready to go. This was planned between March and November, so you should see a lot more work in the next several months. There's still an upcoming change order for reuse of the transfer switch for hazardous materials and window caulk, and for an additional window replacement. We're still waiting for that breakdown. The next is the lift station at Harris Road. The contractor has stopped which you've seen in the last month as they put the roof on. The walls are up. They're ready to do the siding. Roughly a month from now, the building should look the way it should look final. And then they'll work on the inside with the pumps and the valves and everything else. They're due for startup in June. The last is the street rehab project. We still need to do East Geneva Street, Lakewood Trails, and Cedar Point patches. They're still planning in late March, possibly early April, to get that work done. The only iffy item is the culvert crossing of Geneva Street at Menominee. May or may not need to wait based upon the discussions I'm having with the engineer for that project right now. So they may be in front of the village within the next 30 days requesting that culvert to go in so that they can put a concept in front of the village. They is the Canyon Development, who's not the owner of the property yet, but they're willing to get property owner permission and come in front of the village so that we can do those improvements sooner. I'm sorry, for the, kind of, they're at least talking, yes. And that's all I have for a report. Sure.
Okay, so this date is dated February 28th.
Yes.
The pump is ready for startup. Did they start it up?
They did not show up today like they're supposed to. So the pump isn't even in the hole yet, but it'll take them less than 2 days from the time that they arrive to get that thing going.
And then can we go immediately to about 3 then?
Yes, they're planning on it. Yes. That's their plan, but again, they didn't show up today.
Thank you, Doc.
Yep.
Okay, motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. We are adjourned.
Let's see, Parks and Lakefront.
All right,
Steve,
I'll call to order Parks and Lakefront. Trustees Russell, Wright, Umans are all present. There are 3 items on our agenda tonight. The first one is a carryover from February's meeting, I think due to an incorrect date. I will make a motion to approve the Edgewater Park use and policy contract for the Williams Bay Lions Club Lakeside Craft Market on August 30th, 2025, and waive the $500 deposit fee. Is there a second?
Second, right?
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? All right, that passes. And then the second one is consideration and possible action on a change order number 1 for the Theater Road restroom building remodel. There are 2 items on this for $2,832. Provides slow and elongated ADA pressure assist toilets, 3 of them, and then provide an epoxy flake floor in lieu of an epoxy floor. And the additional labor and material is $2,400. So the financial impact is an increase of $2,832, changing the total cost of the project from $216,400 to $219,232. Does anyone want to make a motion for discussion?
I move that we recommend approval of change order out of $2,832.
Is there a second? I didn't hear a second. Tina, is there a second?
Omen seconds.
Okay. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor of change order number 1 in the amount of $2,832 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That will go to finance for consideration. And then the third item, I think I've got them all, right? Yep. Third item is discussion and possible action on Lions Field repairs and improvements proposal. And this is basically for the baseball fields. There are 3 items on this that has been proposed by the recreation director. Obviously, option number 1 is fence repairs at a cost of $9,500, and that's for the tornado damage from last June. And then a recommendation for another option, which would be a sideline fence and dugouts, and then some field grading as a third option. Ryan, can you address, the first one is easy to understand, the $9,500 to replace the fence. Can you address what you want to do with a fence and dugouts?
Yeah, sure. So the number 1 request that we get for the Lions Field baseball and softball fields are the need for not necessarily dugouts, but shade structures, right? Most of the time we're playing May, June, July, and it gets extremely hot out there. This is an affordable and cost-effective way to provide those requests without spending $30,000, $40,000 on a set of dugouts. So basically what it is it's a 7-foot tall fence in the front, it's a 6-foot tall fence in the back, and then they're running fence posts like trusses. We run pressure treated AC2 lumber across the top of those, and then we attach some very nice looking metal tin to that roof as well. I know it sounds kind of a little hokey, but I promise you, if you want to see pictures of it, there's pictures in your packet, and it actually does look really, really nice. The other reason for this is it's kind of 2 birds with 1 stone. The side fence out there down at Lions Field South, it is going to need some repairs at some point. I like to call it has bacon fence. There's no bottom tension wire, so over time, kids hitting baseballs up against it, it starts to bacon out at the bottom, and that's going to have to be replaced. So it's kind of, while they're out there doing the tornado damage, it's a perfect opportunity to, make another enhancement to that park, as well as kind of doing some future maintenance all in one foul swoop. So.
Is that it, Ryan?
Yeah, for the fence. Do you want me to talk about the grading portion of it?
Yeah, why don't you?
Sure. I would use the term grading loosely. It's really just taking a skid steer and running it on the transition line between the infield and the outfield. Over time, as you run a field machine, dirt starts to collect and push to the outside, creating an unnatural hump. This field has gotten to the point to where we have T-ballers that are standing out in center field, and you can just see the little heads as it crests the line as you stand behind home plate. And so it's just a simple fix, running a skid steer in there and kind of just taking back some material. it wouldn't change the flow structure of the field at all. It just really just kind of pools up a little bit right there in the southeast corner of the north field. And so I already talked to Oling Construction on that. We don't have a formal quote yet, but Dean said he would be very, very surprised if it got over $6,000 or up to $6,000. So between all three of, the requests, as well as, some moisture management materials, that's Turfus is basically what it is. It's it's like a clay compound that helps with moisture management within the baseball field. We're going to be right there, just slightly under budget. So.
Is that it again?
Yep. Unless anybody has any questions.
All right, so I'll make the motion for discussion purposes. Hang on. I'll make a motion recommending approval of the Lion baseball field repairs and improvements proposal for an amount not to exceed $29,830, with the understanding there was $15,000, $15,701.99 reimbursement from insurance for the damage currently on the field. Is there a second?
I'll second that for discussion, so.
I'll second that, Steve.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Any discussion?
Yes, I have some recommendations because obviously this will go to finance. So my first thing is, I was looking at the insurance money, Ryan. And so that is 15,700. For that, you can do the fence repairs, which you said are urgently that you want to do right away.
Yes.
Okay, then you had an roofing and a dugout. Those are minor amounts. You can do that. The moisture materials, you can do that.
The roofing is only if the dugouts happen.
Yeah, but listen where I'm going. Okay, so then actually you had the field grading up to $6,000. So is that your number or did you get somebody?
That's Dean's.
You.
Dean Oldwing.
So let's say that would be 4,500 hours instead of 6,000. You can pay for all of that with the insurance money. Okay, so it leaves then 13,500 hours that you need for the sideline fence and dugouts. Okay, and you already mentioned it's in the capital improvement program, but it isn't really because there's no money in the capital improvement program. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. This was on the finance committee meeting, and hopefully Lowell can hear me. Last week, we didn't get to it. Lowell came up with a much shorter list of projects.
Yep.
And right now he is thinking $300,000 to transfer that from the water fund to the general fund. So those projects can be done. So we'll make the recommendation to finance to take a second look at that list, and maybe he will be, Lowell, it's his committee, the finance committee, can increase the $300,000 to $313,000. And then if everybody's agreement and the village board, then I think we can do that also. So that would be the plan.
Sounds good to me.
Steve, I have a question if I might.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ryan, how would you characterize participation in baseball and softball programs? Slight, medium?
Yeah, so over the last year, we did see growth within the program from past years. One of the things that we've had numerous conversations with the community as well as the school is how do we try and bring in those younger families, T-ball, first grade, second grade, to grow it into eventually having 8 full teams, 4 on baseball and 4 on softball. Our numbers this year are really good so far, better than what we had last year at the beginning of March. But hopefully that we can show that these field improvements and the things that we're doing here within the Williams Bay Recreation Department will rival any other surrounding community when it comes to our athletics as well as our facilities. And so we definitely do, we are seeing a significant increase within participation across the board on that stuff.
Thank you.
Yep.
So
Can I?
Rob, did you have a different recommendation? Money-wise?
No, we just approved this and send it to finance.
Okay.
Let me just jump in real quick, Steve. I just have a quick question. Are we allowed to spend the insurance payout on things that aren't repairing the fence?
So it is technically repairing fence as well. So everything in Lions Park, it's not just the small field that we're, or the big field that we're doing. There are repairs up on the north field as well. One of the things that was damaged was one of those bleachers, to where we feel that we can actually straighten out those bleachers. The reason that the number is 15,000 for the insurance versus the 9,500 that was originally quoted. When the tornado hit, we had a very tight timeline in order to get that stuff in, to which didn't allow us to get as many quotes as we would have liked before we sent it off to to FEMA for that number. So when we reached out to the insurance company, he said, "Give me your highest quotes," and I sent him the highest quotes that we had, and that's what he sent us back. So everything's been paid out so far. But to my knowledge, there's no stipulations on what that money is utilized for.
Oh, okay.
I think we're done discussing, Steve.
All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right, we'll go to finance. And I think now it's a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that
So
motion.
moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Adjourned.
Well, that brings us to Finance Committee and all these things that have piled up from other committees. So I'll call to order the Finance and Personnel Committee. Trustees Wright, Ellis, are present. First item coming from Water and Sewer is a consideration possible action for the new Public Works, Water and Sewer. The estimated financial impact is $78. This is a budget expense as well as the. Would entertain a motion to recommend board approval of this.
I'll make a motion to approve, D'Alessandro.
Jim,
Uman's second.
thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of recommending board approval of the quote from North Atlantic, it's a new box for 2020, amount of $18,565, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That forward to the board for their consideration. Next item is, comes again from Sewer and Water, renewal of the HydroCorp contract. This is something we're required to replace. HydroCorp has been our friend for some time and recommends an increase across the 2 years.
Hello, I'll make a motion to approve, send it to the village board to approve.
I'll second, D'Alessandro.
Is that a motion, Rob?
Yeah, we made the motion and we have a second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of recommending board approval of the HydroCorp cross-connection proposal, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carry that forward to the board for your consideration.
Lowell, do you want item number C and item number D to go to the consent agenda?
I'm sorry, Rob, I didn't understand.
You wanted those two items to go to the consent agenda?
Yes, they may.
Okay.
Good idea. Next item on our agenda comes from Parks and Lakefront again. Consideration and possible action on change order number 1 for Theater Road restroom. as a cost increase of $2,832. Again, it was recommended by the Parks and Lakefront Committee. I'd entertain a motion to recommend board approval of the change order.
I'll make the motion to approve that. It's small amount.
Second.
Thank you, Jim. Any further discussion? All those in favor of recommending board approval of change order number 1, the amount of $2,832 to Theater Road Restroom, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Carry that forward to the board. Thank you. And then our last item is comes from Parks and Lakefront Committee on Lions Field repairs improvement proposal. I think that the recommendation from the Parks and Lakefront Committee was an approval in amount not to exceed $29,830. Is that correct, Steve?
That was correct. It was a not to exceed.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to recommend board approval of the Lions Field repairs in an amount not to exceed $29,830.
Lowell, you kind of keep breaking up here, and I can't hear what you're saying necessarily. But did you hear what I said? We don't all have all the money. Did you hear what I said about is that the list that you put together with your $300,000 and maybe included in that list or revise that list slightly? That still has to be approved by the village board and the finance committee. Otherwise, we're short at least about $15,000, let's say.
I don't understand how we're short.
What? Well, this is not on any of the capital improvement list. And you just put a list together for all those projects that make up $300,000. This is not part of it. And so he can do about half from the insurance money. The other half, we need to find out where the money is coming from.
Well, the 2025 CIP includes a line item for $15,000 for Lions Field repair.
Okay, that's it. But that hasn't been approved yet by the village board. And we haven't even really talked about it yet. We didn't get to it in the last meeting.
But we just approved money for the water and sewer truck.
You keep breaking up.
Well, what I was trying to communicate was, yes, I know the CIP needs some tweaking on it, but this is a line item in the CIP.
Rob, I got a question for you.
What?
We need 13,500, correct? Because the rest of it's coming from insurance. So how much do we need to find?
He needs $15,000.
15,000 we need.
$6,000 is right. He needs 15,000.
So we need 15,000. We need to find that.
Yeah. So we were gonna.
How about we make a motion to approve this contingent upon the finance chair making a recommendation where that 15,000 is going to come from at the board meeting?
Correct. Let's do that. There's such a motion, then I'll second that.
Okay.
I think I heard my name attached to a contingency. What was that?
Lowell, my motion was to approve this project contingent upon you finding where this $15,000 is going to come out of and present it at the board meeting on the 17th.
Okay. Will do.
Okay, good.
Just to get out of here.
All right.
We
got a first and a second, so go ahead, Lowell.
Or do we want to just continue this so we have the documentation?
Call the question.
Call the question, please.
I made a motion and we have a second.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Lowell, we have a motion and a second right now. So you just need to call the question.
Motion is to approve this contingent on documenting the money. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
For just the 15, I can still move forward with.
No. Yes, it's just, the motion is to approve the project with the insurance money, and the contingency is for the additional 15,000 for the finance chair to present at the March 17th meeting, where the money's going to come from.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So you want to call the question or call the vote, Lowell?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those no. Okay, I will have that documentation. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn finance.
Motion to adjourn, you want to?
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Lowell, and Rob seconds.
All those in favor?
Okay.
We're adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.
We're
Thank you
item
for your-
number 8, Village Board Committee of the Whole, possible action on matters discussed in the committee. There is none, but I do want to really thank the 2 trustees calling in from their vacations, especially the one in Aruba. I really want to thank the gentleman up here who is an electronic whiz, who's helped. We were in 3 rooms and people all over the place, so thank you very much. We appreciate it. I also appreciate the help of our rec director, who turns out to be a real techie, and he was very helpful as well. Motion to adjourn. Second. Second, please, so we can get out of here. Second. We have a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you, folks.